real fast. If I have to buy a new phone, we'll fix that.
You're on order.
Yeah, always. Oh, so I've got, it's on mute. I've got all the. You work in the mayor's spot?
I guess I didn't realize there's a bigger spot. I do know that. Yeah, yeah.
We wouldn't know.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the July 8th meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Ms. Parker will give the opening statement.
We would like to welcome all present to the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. The format for this meeting is as follows. As each application is called, we would ask that all those, both for and against, to please come to the front of the room. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. Please note that the applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case. The 15 minutes includes the applicant and any consultants and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the board will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be allowed to make their statements and ask questions. Please note that each member of the public who wishes to speak, either for or against the application, will be given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker at the podium may request to extend their time, and the board may, by 2/3 majority vote, extend any speaker's time in 5-minute increments. The applicant will then answer questions and make a closing statement. All statements at the meeting shall be directed to the board, and cross-conversation among those in attendance is prohibited. Questions between opposing parties shall be directed first to the chairman, who may then ask the proper person to answer, such answer being directed to the board. The public hearing portion of that meeting will be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the board if a question is directed to them. The staff will then make their comments and recommendation. The board will discuss the application and make their decision. A brief statement of the reason for the motion will precede the making of the motion. Motions to approve shall include the staff stipulations unless otherwise stated in the motion. Also, all items or exhibits submitted and/or shown either to the board or staff during the hearing will be retained to become part of the official record of these proceedings. The board is required to disclose contacts with regard to any item on the agenda. Before each item, I will ask if any contacts have been made, and members of the board will be asked to disclose those contacts at that time. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Our first application is appeal number 2335, Doug Clemens with USD 500 for property at 1735 North 64th Terrace. Does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Hello,
Good evening.
Doug Clements, Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools Director of Physical Properties at 2010 North 59th Street in KCK 66104. I'm just going to turn it right over to Megan Barnes, the architect, and she can go through the design process.
Do we have the documents?
You just want staff report out,
Yeah, that's fine.
or do you want the actual, like, you want the plans?
Yeah, if you have the plans up. As Doug said, I'm Megan Barnes with Hollis Miller Architects representing USD 500. We're here tonight to request a variance for the exterior signage, wall-mounted signage at the new Gloria Willis Middle School. There are 3 exterior signs that have been presented. 2 of them are on the south facade and 1 on the west facade of the building. And we're requesting a variance for 2 reasons. 1, 2 of the signs are larger than the allowable 50 square foot area for our R1 residential zoning. Given the size of the building height, 2 of them are on the gym, which is a 2-story volume. Obviously, the school is a larger building than most within the residential zoning area. And with the distance from the street to the building for legibility and readability, and also requesting a variance, there are 2 signs on the south facade, 1 at the entry. There's 2 angles. You can see on the plan here to the parking area is to the south of the building, and there's 1 facade and then 1 slightly at an angle to there right at the entry. That one has words that read Gloria Willis Middle School, and then the other one is a decal icon, circular icon with the logo on it. If we could zoom in on the images of the exterior. So this is the first sign, the home of the Panthers. As you can see, it's on a portion of the gym that's facing the street there. And it is obviously larger than the 50 square feet area. We're requesting the variance in order to, number 1, for readability, but also then using it as a graphic and signage and mascot for the school branding and identity from the street, so it's easily visible. And then the second one, as you can see there, Gloria Willis Middle School is on that southern facade, which is somewhat at an angle to the building. So the increased size is there for as you're driving past it. You're quite a distance, as you can see on the plan there, from it. And it is a small portion of the facade there in relative to the size of the building. So those are the 2 that are larger than the 50 square foot that we're requesting that variance for. And then this is the mascot there at the front entry, which is adjacent to the Gloria Willis sign. And those 2 are considered, even though they're a little offset, they're considered to both be on the south facade. And the ordinance allows for 1 sign on that facade. So requesting a variance for the size and then that secondary sign on the south facade.
Okay. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up to public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public portion. We'll get staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's actually working well tonight. We'd recommend approval of this, but I'd also note that should these be approved tonight, I'm going to ask our code consultant working on the zoning code to update the sign percentages in the R1 district to more closely resemble what we have here for the, basically you can do churches and schools in the R1 district. Usually both buildings that are larger and set farther back from the road that would need larger signage. So just so you know, that's what I'm intending to do if these were to be approved. If you have other comments related to that, I would like to hear those. And I'll pass those along to the code consultant as well.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff? I have one. Commissioner Serta.
Rob, just to sort of qualify your statement, just want to make sure that would only apply to wall signs and not to monument signs, is that correct?
Well, we've already asked them to modify the monument sign a little bit because of the variance we did with the Turner School District. I think we went to 50 or 60 square feet because of the different size of the new LED boards. So we'll be looking at that as well.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Conley, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley? Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal with the staff stipulations passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you.
Our next appeal is number 2336, Doug Clemens with USD 500 for property at 5200 Leavenworth Road. At this time, does any member of the board have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
What do you want now?
Hey, Doug Clements, again, still, KCK Public Schools, Director of Physical Properties at 2010 North 57th. Yeah, verse 2 for Wellborn Elementary School. I have Gordon Kimball with HDK Architects here to go through the similar presentation.
Thank you.
Evening, Board. So yeah, once we get this pulled up, we'll be able to see the Wellborn Elementary School. It is along Leavenworth Road, otherwise Highway 5 there through Kansas. So very similar in nature to the previous issue, in that this is a school building in a residential neighborhood, and the signage is slightly greater in size than the allowable 50 square feet, and we have multiple signs on a single elevation. We were very cognizant of that during our design and placement of the signs, looking for the appropriate scale and frontage for those. So the signs do face the sides of the site that are furthest from any residences. They're facing the road, on which the opposite side is a church building, no houses. Face that side that has the two signs. This image here is of the east side, and there's a single sign on that, which says Wellborn. It's a halo-lit sign. That would be about 350 feet from the property line, which abuts an apartment complex. There's some details of it there. So it's taller than the allowable, as well as greater in area. And I think if we're scrolling through, we'll come to, there you go. There's the other text sign that is on the south elevation. That is a little bit over the square footage allotment. It simply says Wellborn Elementary, identifying the school clearly, so you can read it from the road as you're driving by and be able to make the turn into the parking lot safely. And the other sign that you'll see coming up, that's just the address there, is a what's classified as a mural. So it's an artistic depiction of the school mascot, the eagle, similar to the last issue we saw. And it is facing the road and is greater than the allowable area. So again, it's an identification issue, kind of a school pride and prominence in that neighborhood. So we feel like it is an appropriate scale and use of signage for this school building.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Connolly?
I guess my question is, is the school, you don't understand what the variance is? The school's come up here twice today, and it seems like they're trying to break the code, or should we change the code? You keep saying that you can't see it. If we put it to the scale to where it's not breaking the ordinance, you saying you can't see it from the road?
Yeah, so it'd be 50 square feet, which is 5 by 10 size, so it wouldn't be easily recognizable or readable. So there is calculations you can do based on readability and speed and distance, which therefore would calculate to a height for signage. And so if we do that, it comes out actually higher than the signage that we provided here. So again, feel like it is in the context of the size and scale of the building and the greater distance away from the road that normally any structure would be in a residential neighborhood. So we're kind of guilty by association by being in this R1 zone. It's more concerned with the scale of homes, and we're as a large school building and multi-story facility, just in a little different.
So what is the distance from the road?
It is 220 feet.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to the request? Seeing none, we'll close it and we'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd recommend approval, subject to the staff stipulations.
Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner Curtis, seconded by Commissioner Reasons. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Yui?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve this appeal with the staff stipulations passes, 6 in favor and none opposed.
Great, thank you. That will conclude the agenda unless Mr. Clements has anything else for us this evening.
I was gonna ask you.
We're all good. We'll conclude this meeting and we'll start the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 6:30. Thank you.
He done?
I wasn't sure because I thought it might be 4 or
Order. Ms. Parker will read the opening statement.
We would like to welcome all present to the meeting of the City Planning Commission. Mr. Jeff Carson is serving as chairman this evening. The Planning Commission is a voluntary body of citizens which will review each zoning proposal. For all change of zones, special use permits, vacations, and preliminary plan reviews on tonight's agenda, the Planning Commission makes recommendations to the Unified Government Board of Commissioners, who will then make the final decisions on Thursday, July 25th, 2019. For final plats and final plan reviews heard tonight, the Planning Commission's decision is final and there will not be another hearing. The format for this evening's meeting is as follows. As each application is called, we would ask that all those, both for and against, to please come to the front of the room. The applicant will make the opening statement explaining the proposal. Please note that the applicant will be given 15 minutes to present their case. The 15 minutes includes the applicant, consultants, and other members of the applicant's team. Members of the Planning Commission will then address any questions they may have to the applicant. Any persons wishing to speak in favor will be allowed to do so at that time. Then those persons in opposition will be allowed to make their statements and ask questions. Please note that each member of the public who wishes to speak will be given 5 minutes to express their opinions. Time may not be shared between speakers. A speaker at the podium may request to extend their time, and the Planning Commission may, by 2/3 majority vote, extend any speaker's time in 5-minute increments. The applicant will then answer questions and make a closing statement. The public hearing portion of the meeting will then be closed, and the public will only be allowed to address the commission if a question is directed to them. The Planning Commission will discuss the application and make their recommendation. Also, all items or exhibits submitted and/or shown either to the Planning Commission or staff during the hearing will be retained and become part of the official record of these proceedings. If persons in opposition want to formally protest a change of zone or special use permit, a means is available by a legal protest petition, which can be obtained along with the necessary instructions by calling the Urban Planning and Land Use Department at 573-5750 tomorrow morning. Any application receiving a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission will appear on the consent agenda of the Unified Government Board of Commissioners. Unless there is a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the Unified Government Commission, or other interested parties, the Planning Commission's recommendation will be adopted. The consent agenda is heard at the beginning of the meeting at 7 p.m. If you are interested in an item, you should appear promptly on Thursday, July 25th, 2019 at 7 p.m. to see what action is taken or to ask that it be removed from the consent agenda. The Planning Commission will also have a consent agenda as part of their meeting this evening. The consent agenda is the first part of the agenda, and items on the consent agenda are final plats, final plans, or special use permit renewals that have received a staff recommendation to approve. Unless there is a request to remove an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the staff, a member of the Planning Commission, or other interested parties, the staff recommendation on all of the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Planning Commission at one time. I will read a list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the chairman will ask if there are any requests to remove items. This is your time to come to the microphone and request that an item be removed from the consent agenda if you do not agree with the staff recommendation. All items not removed from the consent agenda will be approved by the commission with a staff recommendation. The Planning Commission is required to disclose contacts about any item on the Planning Commission agenda. Before each item, I will ask if any contacts have been made, and members of the commission will be asked to disclose those contacts at that time. We appreciate the attendance of those here this evening, and we recognize the seriousness of each case and each person's opinions. but would like to request that each side keep their comments as concise as possible. Your opinions will be forwarded to the governing body for their consideration in making a final decision. In addition, those who received notices for this evening's hearing will again receive them for the hearing on Thursday, July 25, 2019. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Consideration of the June 10, 2019 City Planning Commission minutes. Special use permit application SP 2019-73, Carmen Garcia. Renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land to keep a food truck at the residence at 2932 South 8th Terrace. Special use permit application SP 2019-74, Martha Medina with Manhattan Bar and Grill LLC. Renewal of a special use permit for a restaurant and drinking establishment with live entertainment at 812 South 12th Street. Special use permit application SP 2019-78, Dennis Zolator. Renewal of a home occupation special use permit for an in-home safety business, internet and in-person sales of firearms and supplies, and consulting services providing safety, security, and firearms training at 3136 South 73rd Terrace. Plan review application PR 2019-12, Riyadh Baghdadi. Final plan review for remodel expansion of existing gas station and tire shop building at 4116 Metropolitan. The items I have just read are on the consent agenda. At this time, does any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact on any of these items?
No.
Please include the following items as part of the record for all of the items on the consent agenda: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the ECHO for the special use permits, and the notices to property owners. The commission will vote to approve in one vote these items unless someone comes forward and asks that an item be removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to have anything removed from the consent agenda for special consideration? Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission that would like to have anything removed? Commissioner Connolly,
SP 2019-78.
78. Okay, we'll pull off SP 2019-78. Is there anything else? Okay, seeing none, I'll stand for a motion on the remainder of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Motion by Commissioner Curtis, second by Commissioner Huey. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you.
That will now take us back to the one item that was removed from the consent agenda, that special use permit application SP 2019-78, Dennis Zolator, renewal of a home occupation special use permit for an in-home safety business, internet and in-person sales of firearms and supplies, and consulting services providing safety, security, and firearms training at 3136 South 73rd Terrace. All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening. Go ahead and give us your name and address and tell us about your project.
I'm Dennis Zolator. I reside at 3136 South 73rd Terrace. I have requested the renewal of my special use permit for my federal firearms business.
Okay. Are there any questions, Commissioner Connolly?
Yes, I have a question. You normally, if something expires over a couple of months, I usually take it off the consent agenda when staff approves, put it on the consent agenda. So, is there any reason why it took you so long to renew this? It expired on 3/30/2019.
Right, I understand. Just travel for business, and it got buried in my email inbox, and I didn't understand the process for getting it renewed.
It looks like you renewed it a couple of times, or was that somebody else?
No, that was me.
And you didn't understand it this time to renew it?
Correct. I read through the email. Like I said, got busy with travel for my full-time job, and it got buried in the inbox, and I didn't realize that I had some paperwork to fill out and follow through.
Okay. Now, I get, my other question is, and I might be a little nosy, now, how many firearms you think you sell a year out of that home?
I put statistics in with my renewal application for the staff to review. I average about 2 people a month coming to the house to purchase.
Do they do a background check?
Correct, yeah. Federal law requires a background check.
Now, do you have a business license?
Correct, yes, I do.
Okay. And has that expired too?
No, it has been renewed and it's paid up.
I don't see a copy in here. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll close the, we'll open up public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this petition? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd recommend approval of this application, subject to the staff comments.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question.
Commissioner Connolly?
So, Rob, does this require a business license? Because I don't see any reference to a business license in the report.
If the business license wasn't current, you'd have a comment saying they need to get a business license.
So they do have a business license?
Yes.
What's the date on the business license?
I don't look that up unless I get a comment from business license. I didn't get a comment from them, so that means that the license is current.
Will it run out before 5 years?
They have to renew it every year.
I know, but will it run out before 5 years is what my question.
Yes, because they have to renew it every year.
And if he don't renew it, will he,
I will be informed.
okay. All right. Thanks.
Any further questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Huey for approval, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of this special use permit, subject to the staff stipulations, passes. 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. And Janet, what is the date of the commissioner meeting?
The special use permits will go before the commissioners on July 25th at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the consent agenda, and the commission will now move on to the non-consent agenda. Also, for the public, the commission would request that when an applicant hears their application being called, that they move forward to the microphone along with all those for and against in order to keep the meeting moving. Mr. Chairman, we have 2 applications that we're going to hear together. Change of zone application 3196, Daniel Foster, Wischlegel and Associates. Change of zone from AG Agriculture District to RP1, Planned Single Family, and RP3, Planned Townhouse Districts for a single-family and duplex development at 11234 Haskell Avenue. We will also hear the corresponding Connor Creek preliminary plat. Mr. Chairman, please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area, the staff recommendation, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated May 16, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated May 16, 2019. At this time, does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
Yes.
Okay?
I spoke with the subdivision agent on Saturday when I was out showing homes about the pending development. It was a brief conversation.
Okay. Anyone else? All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dan Foster, Foster, with Schlegel and Associates, 14920 West 107th Street, Lenexa, Kansas, representing Guy Tyner with Lead Valley Redevelopment, who is also here tonight. We also have Jeff Wilkie with Trans Systems, who prepared the traffic study for the project. First, I just want to let you know that currently the project is titled Connor Creek, and we just recently learned that there's already a Connor Creek, so the name will be changing, but we don't know what that name is yet. Most of you are familiar with the location of the site based on what was in the staff report, and there was a pretty good description of the basics of the project in the staff report, so I'm just going to focus on a couple of items. The Prairie Delaware Piper Area Plan indicates this area is mixed use, residential. The intent is to encourage a mix of different housing types. The plan proposes 48 single-family and 16 attached. On that plan, it's a little hard to see, but the northern portion, the kind of beige or yellowish color, are the single-family, and the lower portion are the 8 buildings, which 16 units of the attached units. The proposed plan is in compliance with the Prairie Delaware Piper Plan. This 18.2 acre site is rather unique in that it is surrounded on 3 sides by platted subdivisions. There are 5 existing streets that have been extended to this subdivision or to this property. And we also have to provide street extensions to the property to the west. Each of the adjacent neighborhood plats were designed with the city required developers to plat those streets to create interconnectivity between the subdivisions, and we're following that plan through this particular development. And again, the intent of those has always been for them to all connect somehow through this little small 18-acre piece of property, which doesn't give us a lot of flexibility in how we do that based on the terrain and just the location of those streets. The city's intent, again, was for us to do a traffic study, which we had done and completed by an experienced licensed traffic engineer who works for the nationally recognized transportation firm and Trans Systems. And that study concluded that the street network that we have here would continue to operate at or below the level of service requirements of the unified government. Jeff is available to answer any specific questions that you might have about that. 56% of the site is in open space. A walking path, a sitting area have been provided in that as required by the master plan. And that open space will be owned and maintained by the Homes Association. So this project is similar to the Hazelwood project in that the property owners own about 2 feet outside of their unit and they own the driveway. All of the remainder of the space is common space that will be owned and maintained by the Homes Association, so it'll be maintained on a regular basis. Detention is provided, it's that light green area on the plan there, as required by code. It's located, the drainage swale is along our western boundary and then extends back to the west. And that will discharge to that. None of our property discharges to any of the adjacent subdivisions, except for the small backyard of the upper northeast corner, that unit. That backyard goes off towards the northeast. All the rest of this will drain down to the detention basin. The homes will be similar to the homes in Hazelwood. There will be 1-story homes with a basement, and the materials will be similar to the homes in Hazelwood. I would like to just momentarily address one of the letters that was submitted recently that cited a Realtor.com article. And I just wanted to, I don't know if any of you took the time to go to the website, but I did, and, because I was curious, because I'd never seen that website, that article. I've seen a lot of other articles. One of the things that that study does is it did a comparison by zip codes, which is interesting because when you think about doing zip code comparison for a lot of these major cities, you're looking at a large vast of differences just between the zip codes, not just necessarily because of we have attached product here. It could be a whole host of other factors, none of which were really ever considered in any of that data that was taken by the census. The article even states that it's hard to do an analysis down to every property. It was a very broad brush review based on zip code data, which is not real, in my opinion, real reliable. And there was a lot of discussion about higher than average concentration, which was never defined in any of the information that was provided there. So the more common thing for folks to look at is a study that's been done by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in which they studied very specifically some multifamily immediately adjacent to single family at various stages of the development. And they showed that there is no real link between the home values and the proximity of rental units to that single family home. And they also state that it's difficult and not impossible to measure the impact, any single impact of a multifamily project adjacent to a single family project. So in this particular project, what we're talking about here is 8 buildings, 16 units. They're exactly, or very similar to, not exactly, but similar to the attached villas that were built in Hazelwood, so they're a good quality. Again, the HOA controls the maintenance of the surrounding property. A lot of times when you see a disparity in terms of property values, it's because a property is not being maintained, and that can happen even in a single-family home or any vacant piece of property. We've also provided along that buffer 65 feet, which is in excess, more than double than what's required by code, and we've basically double planted that area. So we planted the buffer. You can go down to the bottom portion there for me, Mike. We planted a row immediately on the attached villa product. Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you. Right here, we planted a row of trees and evergreens here, and then we've also got another row here on this piece of property, which is also part of the single family. So essentially, we've got a double row of landscaping there, and our intent is to build a berm, as high a berm as we can. Just real quick, we met with the homeowners to discuss the plan. Some of them are here tonight, and we made all of the changes that we can on this plan. There are some things they ask us that we cannot do, such as disconnecting streets. In closing, we feel that this particular project is an appropriate and good land use for the area. It complies with the master plan. It's similar to the adjacent neighborhoods. It meets the codes and ordinances of the unified government, and it provides quality open space and housing units for the future residents. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And
Thank
Jeff's
you.
available also.
All right, thank you. I have a couple. On the attached units, are they going to be rental or are they going to be owner occupied?
Our intent, we're going to sell them as owners to owners. We're not going to they're not going in with the intent of being rental. But just like any of the homes in the area, that owner can choose to rent it, and we have no control
I'm asking
over
about the
that.
intent
Yeah,
of
but our
building
intent
them.
is they're for sale units, and we're going to sell them.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? I have another one. As far as age restrictions, Hazelwood is age restricted. Is there going to be an age restriction on this?
What we're going to do is we're going to market to the 55 and older.
Is the answer yes or no?
It is not.
Okay,
at
you're
this
giving me
time.
a long answer to
Yeah.
a short question.
Yeah, but
So
no.
it's not going to be a 55 and older
Not at
community?
this point, it is not.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. We'll go ahead and open up the
Thank you.
public portion of the meeting. And is there anyone who wants to speak in favor of the project? Okay. Is there anyone opposed? Okay. Would you all like to speak, or are you all? Two of you are going to speak, and then we'll go ahead and do a hand count. Who here is opposed to the project by a show of hands, and we'll make sure that you're counted. Well, you can if you come to the microphone. Well, I'm going to have you come to the microphone if you want to talk, so, okay. So, and you got a count of the two here in the front?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so with the two ladies, would you like to speak? Please come forward. Go ahead and give your name and address, and go ahead and give us your statement.
All right. I'm Cindy Woodall. My address is 11424 Cleveland Avenue. That's Kansas City, Kansas, 66109. And I am the current president of the Hazelwood Homes Association. First and foremost, I want to say we're not opposed to the Connor Creek development. We have talked with the developers. They've been very open about hearing our request. What we're here tonight for is to make sure you understand we're opposed to opening Cleveland into that neighborhood. The Hazelwood Homes Association is marketed as a 55 and older. We have our license, we take our census every year, and we stay that way. If you open Cleveland, it is going to change the traffic dynamic, especially this area where you just see the plot. It doesn't show. All those houses are built now. We are currently in knee-deep with the water control in our neighborhood. We have invested $62,000 in just one of the water retention problems that we have in that area, and we have two more. I don't think that map fully pops out what's going on right there in Hazelwood. That addition is not going to butt up to us. There are the trees that you see, that is the unified government's very expensive Connor Creek water issue that goes across to 115th Street, just north of Cleveland. But we have the runoff that comes down. The Piper was built without appropriate water drainage issues, and now we're, as residents in this older neighborhood, paying the cost for that.
And when you mention the Piper, you're talking about the memory facility
The
that's built within your,
facility, right.
Correct.
And the city engineers that approved that are no longer with the city, but we still have the problems. We have two ponds, one at Haskell and one at Cleveland. The developers have graciously said they're not going to run their water downhill into ours. But we have people from 98 down to 55 driving in that area. We already have the traffic from the Piper, the memory facility, coming in and out to work every day. We've been in a construction zone for 3 years. What we're asking the commission is to allow us to be what you gave us to be to begin with, which is a closed community. How the whole master plan got Cleveland open does not take into account that you have 80-year-old people backing out of their garages into people at the mailboxes and everywhere else. And we're dealing with this as an HOA, but if you open this up and send that traffic from Walmart or any of those other areas, I've got that to deal with, the people with their walkers and the traffic flowing by as it is now, it's going to increase. So what they're building there, that's fine. We're not opposed. We are opposed to the Cleveland opening and changing the dynamic of a 55 and older neighborhood.
okay. I just have one question for you. What about currently the only access out of Hazelwood is onto 115th and onto Parallel, and to go to the,
114th on the parallel, I'm sorry.
okay. But if they're going out, wouldn't
It's
it be?
Cleveland at 115th, and we've already worked with the Kansas City, Kansas Fire and Rescue people, and our streets, now that Haskell is open, it took me about 2 years to get Public Works to move the barricades out, but now everything is looped. They can come in and go out without ever turning around.
What about accessing and going eastbound over to the Legends and over to Walmart? What's the route that your residents would take?
It would be 114th Street to Parallel, or Cleveland to 115th Street.
So they would have to pull out onto Parallel and make a left-hand turn, which is a pretty dicey proposition.
Every time, but what do they say? We have to have 5 deaths on that corner, and we're up to 3, so we're getting pretty close. The stoplight, I understand, can't be addressed, as I was told, until the American Royal has been assessed on the other corner.
Okay.
But why a stoplight isn't there is probably a good question.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Cancel, and I represent the residents of Hazelwood. subdivision, and my business address is 509 Armstrong Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. Cindy Woodall did an excellent job talking about the long-term effects of opening Cleveland Avenue and allowing complete east-west access between 115th Street and the loop, that's 111th and Haskell. It will change the dynamics of this 55 and over neighborhood. I'm going to focus on some shorter-term issues, and the erosion control plan, that's part of, I think it's part of the application. I received it as part of the information. It provides for the construction staging area through completion of the roads to be placed on the westernmost point of the proposed Connor Creek subdivision, basically at Cleveland Avenue where it cuts through. Their plan is to bring all construction vehicles, workers, et cetera, from 115th Street down Cleveland to reach the staging area. There are two other access points to the Connor Creek development location. One of them is from the east, and it's where Haskell cuts in, and the other one is from the north at 113th Street off of Georgia. As far as I know, there are no houses on the south side of Georgia where the cut in for 113th Street is located. Georgia is also bigger, ranked larger on the master plan for streets. If Haskell, where it cuts in through the loop, toward the east, that's commercial, and there are only 7 houses that traffic would go by to access a staging site that was off of Haskell on the east side. Cindy Woodall mentioned there's been construction for 3 years in the Hazelwood subdivision. There have been extensive issues with silt and erosion. The Piper was not constructed by Mr. Tyner in this development LLC, but the construction that has been the most recent issue in Hazelwood is their project, and it's the residential houses that have been constructed within Hazelwood. They wintered without any sod, even though they were completed September, October. There's several different locations. There was a lot of dirt all winter, and when the spring rains hit, it was a mud hole. And the first time I went out and walked it, I was astonished. Silt fences were being breached by mud, and much of that now has been resolved or is in the process of being resolved. But it took, UG staff was very helpful in establishing communication with the developer, but it was a big problem, especially in a 55 plus, I mean, it's a big problem anywhere. But some of the sidewalks collapsed because of washout, and these are people who are on walkers using canes. Assisted mobility is limited and impaired, and their sidewalks were collapsing, and et cetera. So at the current moment, there's not a huge amount of goodwill. It is rebuilding. But to once again go through however long, year, 2 years, however long it takes, longer than that for this project, and have all that construction traffic and the dirt and the noise go down Cleveland, it's just going to prolong it, and they kind of feel like it's unfair to continue to burden them with another large construction project. The construction in their neighborhood is almost complete. The end is in sight, and they would just be starting over. The neighborhood association and the neighbors are willing to work with the developer, try to come up with something that will work for everyone, but their plan to stage everything by driving from 115th Street down Cleveland and having their staging area right there where that cul-de-sac, where it'll be cut through, is just going to create a lot of problems.
Ms. Cancel, your 5 minutes is
Yes.
up. You can ask the commission for an additional 5 minutes if you're not finished.
Like I said, Cindy Woodall did a really good job talking about the long-term effects of opening Cleveland. I wanted to highlight the short-term effects, and I really thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ma'am, did you want to speak as well? Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in I'm sorry, do you have questions, Commissioner Connolly?
Yeah, for Cindy Woodall.
Okay. Ms. Woodall, could you please come back to the microphone?
Now, you said the homeowners association, so this is most of the members of the homeowners association?
Yes, they all live in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay. So, did y'all meet with this developer before?
Yes,
And did you talk about closing off Cleveland?
yes.
And their thought process was
They're not opposed. It's in the city's master plan.
to open it up?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Ma'am, would you like to speak? Yes, please come forward.
My name is Kathy Zellers, and I live at 11149 Nogard Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas, 66109. And we live on a short street with a cul-de-sac, which they would like to open that cul-de-sac that runs, what is that? 10, 11?
Are you in the Maywood Heights subdivision?
No, yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes. But we live in a nice, quiet neighborhood, and most of us bought houses there because of the cul-de-sac. And we don't need no more traffic. Around the corner, a lot of times for the children, they block off the street and let the kids have Halloween parties, and we feel safer with the cul-de-sacs there. And we don't really want all the noise, the dust. I mean, this was gonna be our last house, and we've been there 2.5 years. But I don't wanna have to move again, but I don't want all the traffic and the noise, and I don't understand why we have to run neighborhood into another neighborhood, into another neighborhood. I don't understand that.
We'll try to get you some clarification, at least of the rationale, but
Okay, but all of Maywood Heights is against this project.
okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr.
like to s-
Chairman?
Yes.
Could I ask a question of that applicant? Or that, could I ask you one question, please?
I'll need you to stand back at the mic. Thank you.
So when you say all of Maywood Heights is against it, how did you come about that? Was there a vote of the neighborhood association, or was there some type of vote taken?
Association, just by talking to the neighbors around.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Because a lot of those streets that they want to put in will be right next to these people's house.
Sure, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Rhea Scott, and I live at 11412 Haskell Avenue. We moved there about a year ago, and the reason that we moved there, retirement community, is we wanted to find somewhere that we could stay and age. And so we chose that community. We had no idea that that was even in a plan to connect. So if this connects through Cleveland, once they get to Haskell, they have a choice to either go around Cleveland, if this is through traffic, or they'll take our street, Haskell, to get out of the neighborhood. Now, if this other division is not going to be age restricted, we're talking about ages of anyone. And we don't want the traffic coming through there. We have a lot of people on our street. They're on walkers. We actually have a guy that's on a motorized scooter, and that's how he gets around, and he comes out for walks in the street. We all know him. And so if you have all this traffic coming through, and plus Walmart is open, to my understanding, I think most of the night. So you would have night traffic coming through our very quiet, retired, it's a 55 and older community for a reason, and we want it to stay that way. It's a very nice community, If that other group wants to build, why can't there be a separation between the two? Why does it have to connect and come through from Walmart, which all kind of traffic comes through there? Then you also have to take into consideration a couple of blocks away is the Kansas Speedway. And when they have those large races, where do those people go to shop? Walmart. So they're leaving Walmart, and once the word gets out that that connects through twice a year when those big races are, guess what? That's going to come right through our neighborhood. And we would like to stay in our nice community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Ma'am, Commissioner Connolly?
All right, would you be opposed to if they put a speed limit at a low speed? Would you
No,
be opposed to that?
No,
in Cleveland?
it's the traffic itself, whether it's a low speed or a regular 40 mile an hour. It's the traffic itself coming from Walmart down through our community, where right now you have to either come through on 115th to Cleveland to come into the subdivision, or you have to come in on 114th in parallel.
Yeah,
So-
I was just referencing because you said you had people on walkers and people
Well, we
like
do.
in motorized wheelchair.
Mhm.
And I figured if somebody approached that street at a slower speed, they could see those people in that. I mean, I'm thinking about a safety piece of it, because, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, even if you have it, you're still going to have the additional, that's not going to cut down on the traffic. It's the traffic itself that when that connects down and they come through, they're either going to come through on Haskell or they're going to go around on Cleveland, where right now we don't have that.
You
If
just
for-
have Haskell.
We just have, you come in off of 115th in Cleveland, or you come in on 114th in parallel. We have two accesses to our neighborhood, and this would make a third.
So how many cars would you think that travels through there right now?
They don't, we have problems now with cars coming through there that we keep a watch on. Everybody's pretty tight-knit, and when we see cars, we don't know. But I don't know, there, every day, the people that live around there, it's decent traffic, but we don't want all this other traffic, and then you got other neighborhoods. If that's a cut-through, when they go to Walmart, they're gonna come, you know, there's Piper Landing up just a little further. There's Newberry up on 123rd, so those people can cut through, right on through Haskell or right on through Cleveland and go right on up to Walmart. So you're opening that up not only just to the Walmart side, but to the neighboring subdivisions as well.
Well, I'm trying to get a clear understanding. So my understanding is, it's the amount of traffic that's coming through, and you don't know what amount of traffic is actually coming through right now, but you assume that there will be a whole lot more traffic coming through if that's opened up. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Can I answer your question on her behalf?
No, you can't.
Okay. Thank you.
Ma'am, is there something you would like to say, though? Please come back. Address your comments to me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's right.
We met with our community resource officer, Officer Vallejo, and asked if, because of the type of activity we have in our neighborhood, if we could lower our speed limit to 20 miles an hour and to get more patrols, because there are stop signs on Verde and 114th Terrace and on Cleveland, but there's not a lot of stopping going on, you know, that just go right around the corner down there. And he said that it wouldn't be possible to do that because our streets are thoroughfares, and so that's why they're 30 miles an hour. And he actually has to see the speeders or the non-stoppers. So we did approach community policing and ask, could we just, because of a 55 and older neighborhood and because of our uniqueness, because we do provide a good service to KCK, you know, with our 55 and older carried. But we've already been told we can't lower the speed limits or get more patrols.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to? Yes, sir. If there's anybody else that wants to speak, please come up to the mic and be ready to go. Yes, sir.
My name's Paul Roberts. I live at 2306 North 114th. I just wanted to address the issue of traffic and speed. They told us when they built the Piper that traffic was going to be no problem. But with the employees that they have there, have a lot of young people, they don't regard the speed limits, they don't regard the stop signs. And this is the same thing that she's talking about. We start getting this outside traffic coming through from Walmart, what have, we're going to end up with the same thing. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public portion of the meeting, and we will get staff comments.
Would you like to give the applicant a chance to respond?
I'm sorry, yes. Mr. Foster, would you please come up forward? I want to ask you about the construction access or the staging area. Can you address
Sure.
that?
Yeah, and then Jeff can address a little more detail on the traffic, what he found in the study, if you need him to.
That's fine.
Okay. So on the staging area, yes, we do have to submit a very preliminary erosion control. Typically, when you build subdivisions, you start at the lowest point because our point of sanitary sewer connection, all of our storm drainage is heading to the west down to where Cleveland connects. So our natural phase one of a potential multi-phase project would have to start in that southwest corner because that's where the lowest point of the site is, where all of our utility connections are. So on our erosion control plan, we do show a construction staging entrance there. That's primarily while the streets are being built. Once the streets are built, the first phase will actually connect from Cleveland over to Haskell. So the construction traffic will actually, for like the plumbers and electricians, will have multiple ways into this site. They won't necessarily be coming through the Hazelwood, so they could come from the other direction into the subdivision. And Rich and Guy could also, do as much as they can in terms of directing them to go that direction. As we continue to develop the subdivision to the north, each time we add a street connection provides another means for those people to get into the site. So if we're up in the northern portion of the site, it's more likely that they would go up to Georgia and come down to get into the subdivision to be building homes versus coming down Cleveland, just because it's the path of least resistance, so to speak, and it's the quickest way for them to get to where they need to be. In terms of the street, just the street network on No Guard, and I forget the other street to the north, if you guys could zoom in on that real quick. Just to be clear, that cul-de-sac is a temporary cul-de-sac that is there. And if you notice, it's not even built on the property for Maywood Estates. It's built on this particular property. You'll notice there's a couple little hammerheads there. So when when Maywood Estates was platted, they actually already platted that street right away there. And I really had no choice in terms of the street layout because that was already dictated to me as a designer that the street had to go here. It had to follow that shape. You can see how there's a curve in terms of right up between those two streets, and we had to follow that curve to make that street connection happen because we also do not own all of that undeveloped property there in the middle. So unless there are any other further questions about that, I will have Jeff come up and just give a quick analysis.
I just have one. You talked about future development. Is there more land there for you all that you're taking this development through? Or is that
No, there's
only piece?
right where you had your cursor. There's a small piece there that somebody could put 2 lots in that we actually are not acquiring all of that property.
But the 18.83 acres is the sum total of your property?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Jeff Wilkie with Trans Systems, 2400 Pershing, Kansas City, Missouri. And we conducted the traffic impact study for the developer. And we did this through consultation with Unified Government staff, with Public Works. We followed their procedures. We were asked to collect some existing traffic volumes on several of the streets that will be connected as part of this plan. We found all these roads have a traffic volume today that's less than 1,000 vehicles per day, which is, and several of them quite a bit less, more in the 200 to 300 cars per day range. That's all considered a low volume of traffic. We also looked at what the proposed development would generate in terms of traffic, and we spread that out across the different access points. And we found that all these same street segments that we looked at it would continue to be under 1,000 cars per day with the additional traffic from this development. As we mentioned, there's 5 connection points to disperse this traffic across, and the connectivity is a good planning principle to make sure that we do have alternate routes out to the arterial street system without having to make all trips to the arterial to leave an area. You have multiple access points to leave the community to get in a different direction, different arterial street of your choice, depending on where your route is. So that's a little bit about what we found there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there questions on the traffic for this gentleman?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So Jeff, if there was a cut-through route, would it come through Cleveland and Haskell, or would it be Georgia? Which way is going to be the cut-through for people to get to 115th Street from the commercial development to the west? Or from the commercial development to the east?
Commercial to the east. It's hard saying. I mean, that cut through, if you will, traffic is going to pick the path of least resistance. They're going to also have multiple routes. If they do choose to go through there, I would assume they will follow the arterial street system as long as that is still the easiest way through. I know most of the speed limits around the area are 20 miles an hour is what they're posted at in these residential neighborhoods. So I know Georgia and the subdivisions on the east side, I don't believe we saw a speed limit posted on the west side on Cleveland when we were out there.
I have a question going back to the traffic. You said less than 1,000 cars is what it's rated at today, but you're saying you're seeing 200 to 300 cars per day is what the actual usage?
Right. We looked at, for instance, Cleveland Avenue today, east of 114th Street, we had 160 cars per day. We had 111th Terrace near 111th Court. Over on the east side, 143 cars a day. Haskell Avenue, east of 111th, again, on the east side, 360 cars a day, 363 cars a day. Georgia Avenue on the north side, we had 769 cars per day.
When was this traffic study done? I mean, does it take into consideration the road construction going on right now with Hutton Road being shut down? Because that all your numbers should be off if it's been recent.
We collected on June 4th.
So all your numbers really are way off because of the Hutton Road construction. I would assume, because everybody's taking every shortcut around to try to get back and forth. So how does that?
Well, I can't do anything for that. I can't, adjust them. This was the time frame we were given to work in here.
I guess I personally wonder how good any of those numbers are, considering the fact that you need a helicopter to get to Walmart if you live over 110th Street.
Okay. Well, the hard part is a lot of these routes that we're looking at aren't really cut-through routes today, except for Georgia. It's the only one that could have
Right.
cut-through potential. And
Correct.
And that was the highest volume we had. So if there is cut-through going on to avoid construction, it's accounted for in here.
Okay. Okay, any other questions about traffic?
I apologize, I'm out of turn. I have a map that shows how the streets will be cut through, that Dan Foster emailed to me. And Cleveland is the only direct-through street.
Okay.
Mi-
Well, we'll get to that in the staff portion of the meeting, and we'll address that. But, okay, any other questions about traffic from the commission? Commissioner
I have
Ernst.
one. I need a tiebreaker from Rob. I heard 20-mile-an-hour streets. I heard 30-mile-an-hour streets.
I'm going to look to Dave, but I believe if it's not posted, it's 30 in the city. That has not changed. So unless there's something posted otherwise, it would be 30. And I'm not sure of the postings. Mike, can you get on Google Maps and see if you can see speed limit signs inside of Hazelwood? Or Kim? We'll find that out.
Okay. Any other questions about traffic before I let this gentleman sit down? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and close we'll go ahead and get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, a couple of stipulations to add. One is that under both of these would be under the planning stipulations. Number 5, that they change the name of the subdivision. And number 6, that all construction traffic use Haskell, coming by 7 houses and not all the way through the subdivision. And it's just a matter of some gravel at the entrance, and it's all construction equipment anyway. They'll be down at that end, but working, but the trucks don't have to come through there. I want to talk a little bit about the connectivity. I think that planning, public works, fire, police are all fairly unified. And in fact, I had a conversation with the fire marshal last week about connectivity in subdivisions. And it is a principle that keeps everyone safer because there are more ways to get there in case of an emergency. When there is road construction or an accident or something else, that gives another way in. And you can see in this diagram here that all of these streets were stubbed in previously. They were all built with temporary cul-de-sacs. Now, I understand that not everybody has the knowledge base that some of us do about what is a temporary cul-de-sac, but it was there, and a phone call to our office would have said, yes, that is intended to connect. You will recall that I believe in May that we had the similar issue with the Whispering Pines subdivision and connecting through to 131st Street, and this commission and the Board of Commissioners both voted in favor of connectivity. I think the hard thing here is figuring out, obviously, all the neighbors around would prefer not to have their streets connect. So if you don't connect one, how do you pick that? And I think that dividing them up and making all the connections available, it treats everyone more equally in terms of how the traffic will disperse through there. I had conversations with Mr. Wilkie while he was preparing the traffic study, and we were curious as to, is this going to impact any one leg or benefit any one person more than the next? And at the end of the day, and Jeff can tap me on the shoulder and correct me if I'm wrong, but it really ends up that there's going to be people from Hazelwood that drive to the east and use this connection. There'll be people from Maywood and the other subdivisions there that drive through to the west and use this. And the folks that are in the subdivision are going to, go east and west from there, and they'll go, they've got to get out to those roads one way or the other. We wouldn't build this subdivision with just, the fire code wouldn't allow us, I don't think, to build the subdivision with just one connection. So, when you start adding these things up and put the principles of connectivity on top of that, I think that you come to the result, at least we did as staff, of providing all of the connections. I do think that there are a couple of things that we can do, much like we did with the subdivision that connected to Whispering Pines. Between now and the final plat, we could look at traffic calming especially on Cleveland as it connects through, and strategically along other places in the new subdivision that would help to prevent traffic speed. And there's one that's kind of built in, because right where this cul-de-sac is right here, this temporary cul-de-sac, this is a low point here. So you have a pretty steep vertical change right here that is going to be naturally slow folks down right there, because I believe, if I'm correct, Dan, that this is going to kind of max out our street grading right there because of that, where that dip is. So, I mean, I think that there are some things we can do as we move forward to the final plan to look at that. And that would be my 7th stipulation, is that they would look at traffic calming along Cleveland and at a couple of places, whatever this new street gets named here, but that they would add traffic calming here along Cleveland somewhere and along this street to make this less of a cut-through potential. And we can work that out as we move into the final plan. With that, we'd recommend approval subject to the stipulations in the staff report and the additional 3 that I've given this evening.
Are there questions for staff? Commissioner Reasons?
Yeah, Rob, I got a question on this one. It seems like our biggest issue that we're hearing tonight is where Cleveland connects there. Was that, and based on what I'm seeing here, it looks like, yes, that was designed to go through eventually someday? Was that?
Absolutely, and Hazelwood was never designed to be a closed community.
Okay. That was my other question, to find out because if it was designed to be a closed community, then yeah, you want to try to
I
keep
mean,
that.
that street was put through on all the original documents, and, you know, as it came through, when this was platted, it was made to be connected, and I don't see how that was ever, if that was there, I can't see how it was ever intended to be a closed
Okay,
community.
all right, thank you.
Other questions for staff? Commissioner Neal?
So just to clarify, we're talking about traffic calming, so we would look at things like possibly speed bumps or the way the road is made, what would some of the traffic calming possibilities be?
So we would probably do things that were not vertical, because that's hard on the fire trucks. We would add horizontal deflection, and there's other techniques that we can use. And I think we'll let the designers and work with Public Works to figure out what is best there. But, you know, you might put a small roundabout here. You might, you know, put a roundabout at one of these that would just help slow that speed down.
Okay.
And there's a lot of other methods there, but obviously when this comes back to you for the final plat, we'll have those answers for you, and we'll be able to discuss those at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions for staff? Commissioner Ernst?
For lack of a better word, are there other duplexes in that general area?
Certainly. Hazelwood is probably 3/4 duplexes. And, you know, I didn't talk about the realtor study, but multifamily, and Jeff might be able to more familiar with how the realtor website handles this, but to me, multifamily is apartment buildings. These are all in terms of if they're being sold to owners, and one side is to one owner, one side's to the other, they're considered single-family homes by the Home Builders Association and by the city and by the Mid-America Regional Council. So I don't know that any of these would be considered multifamily. They would all be considered single-family. Some of the townhouses if they sell it without dividing it to an investor, those get counted on the multifamily side. And so it's a little wonky how they count those, but it's how they're originally sold is how they're counted, whether they're single-family or multifamily.
The term duplex isn't used as much in this type of housing. We consider them patio homes, attached villas is another term that's used. So I mean, it's a fluffier term that's less, you know, negative connotation as a duplex. Yeah. Other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
And please take the change of zone first.
This will be for the change of zone.
Motion to approve change of zone 3196 with staff stipulations.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Serta, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of change of zone application 3196, subject to the staff's revised comments, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
And now I'll entertain a motion on the preliminary plat approval.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat with revised staff stipulations.
Motion by Commissioner Serta to approve, seconded by Commissioner Reasons. Discussion?
One quick thing.
Yes, Commissioner Serta.
Rob, I want to commend you for the comments you made with regard to final plan review. I think it's important for everyone to know that this case will come before us again, and at that time, all of the matters with regard to the traffic calming and the other recommendations the staff will have to be presented in the engineered documents that come before this body before this can be considered again.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Serta. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Nay.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to approve the preliminary plat, subject to the staff's revised comments and suggestions, passes 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you, and this will be heard again on July 25th at 7 PM. Thank you all for attending.
That takes us on to the special use permits. The first one is SP 2019-51, Venkata Mantri. Special use permit for packaged liquor sales at 9801 Parallel Parkway. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated April 15, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated April 15, May 16, and June 24, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
I would remind the commission that this application was held over for 1 month, so legal counsel could review the development agreement and if a liquor store could be constructed in the Vacation Village Star Bond District. All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Mr. Chairman, related to the holdover, I would just note that both our bond counsel and our outside counsel used for development projects has indicated that it would be acceptable to have a liquor store in the Star Bond District.
All right, thank you. Is the petitioner in the room?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Bassam Darbas. I live at 9539 Manchester Avenue, and I own the IG Construction, and I represent Venkata Mantri in this matter. And we are planning to just put a liquor store, small liquor store, adjacent to an existing gas station at the location at the address.
Okay. Anything different from when you were here last month?
No.
Okay. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would recommend approval subject to the staff stipulations, and just note it's going to look just like the car, it'll match the architecture of the car wash.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Reason?
Yeah, Rob, I got a question. What is the distance between the liquor stores that are supposed to be? Because I know that, of course, we got Village West liquor store up the road from that. Do we have a mileage distance between those?
It's not, I think it's more like a quarter mile.
Okay. Okay.
I would have to look it up in the code, but we checked the distance, and Janet, remind me, did they get a variance on this also from the distance from the church?
month.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was last month, I
Yeah, so
believe.
they did have to get a variance on the distance, but it was from the distance from the churches in the area, I believe, not from another liquor store.
Okay, so like the Village West Church that's up on the corner there,
Yeah.
Okay.
And the one
on the other side?
on the other side, east on 98th Street, or on Parallel.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion. A motion to approve by Neal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Huey. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of SP 2019-51, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again July 25th in this room at 7 p.m.
Thank you so much.
Our next special use permit is SP 2019-71, Deborah Jones with Jones Barbecue. Special use permit for live entertainment in conjunction with existing restaurant at 6706 Caw Drive. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case. The city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated May 15, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated May 16 and June 4, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Is the petitioner here? Ms. Jones?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see her.
Okay, we'll move this to the bottom of the agenda. We'll move on to
Okay.
the next case.
Our next case is special use permit SP 2019-75, Jacob Patton. Special use permit for an Airbnb at 819 Southwest Boulevard. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated June 13, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated June 12, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Deidre Patton. When Jake realized he would be unable to attend tonight's meeting, he checked with Kim Portillo, who's his staff contact with planning and zoning, who thought I would be allowed to speak on Jake's behalf from a statement he has prepared.
Okay, please do.
Jake Patton, the applicant, is asking for approval of a special use permit to allow short-term rentals, Airbnb, at his property at 819 Southwest Boulevard. This property is a duplex, and Jake would like to rent each unit separately. Each unit is a newly renovated 3-bedroom and 2 full-bath unit. He is requesting a maximum occupancy of 6 people per unit. Jake will be requesting that each renter bring no more than 2 vehicles to the property. If both units are rented at the same time, this would mean a maximum of 4 vehicles would be on site. There are 3 parking spaces available in the driveway of the property, and there is ample street parking on Southwest Boulevard or South Cherokee Street for the remaining vehicle. House rules will be posted in each unit, and most importantly, the rules will include being respectful to the property and to the neighbors and the neighborhood. Loud noise will be strictly enforced to avoid disturbances to the neighbors. Jake will also install video doorbells and other exterior cameras, both to protect the property and to monitor the number of people entering each unit. This will help ensure that the maximum occupancy for each unit is being honored and help ensure no unauthorized guests are on site. Jake held a neighborhood meeting on June 23rd, and the meeting was attended by Chrissy Scolara and Mike Coons, the next-door neighbors at 815 Southwest Boulevard. No major concerns arose during this meeting. Jake made sure that Mike and Chrissy knew they could contact him directly if they have any questions or concerns. He also explained that his permanent address is 8 minutes away in Strawberry Hill should an issue arise on the property. Personal phone numbers were exchanged at the end of the meeting. Jake has also spoken to several other neighbors on the block to make them aware of plans to use the property for short-term rentals. So far, no one has raised concerns directly with him. Some have been very supportive of the plans. Jake has been very excited about the renovation of this property and is anxious to share the house and the Rosedale neighborhood with guests. If you have any questions, I'll do the best to answer them on his behalf. He's given me a list of possible questions, so I'll do the best I can.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, you might be off the hook.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
We're going to go ahead and open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd recommend approval, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion approved by Commissioner Serta, seconded by Commissioner Connolly. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of SP 2019-75, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard again on July 25th at 7 PM in this room. Thank you.
Our next application is special use permit SP 2019-79, Matt Brodine, home occupation special use permit for a short-term rental Airbnb at 1316 North 20th Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, the notice in the Wyandotte Echo dated June 13, 2019, and the notices to property owners dated June 12, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Matt Brodine. I live at 1316 North 20th Street. It's our primary residence. And the reason we wanted to come here tonight and follow this process of putting our house on Airbnb is my work situation has changed recently. I have some opportunities to travel overseas, in which I would take my family, and we would be gone for several months at a time. And as we looked at several options, wanting this to remain our primary residence and our permanent home, Airbnb seemed to be the perfect vehicle for that, just given we can do short-term rentals while we're gone and help cover the cost of our current mortgage and cash flow. And also, even more importantly, for our neighborhood, the values and the safety of the neighborhood, we believe it's important to keep the house occupied. No one likes having a vacant house anywhere. And so just for those reasons, we want to be able to rent our home when we're not there, and then also be able to come back and use our home as needed as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner?
I
Commissioner
have
Huey?
Who will manage the property in your absence?
Yeah, we have several friends who are going to be managing the property. One is going to be doing the cleaning, follow-up cleaning after each rental. And then the other would be available if we have to have a maintenance or repairman, something like that, they would come to the property with the maintenance company and make sure that's done right.
In the event that a renter has an issue, which one of those would be the contact, or any of them?
The maintenance.
The maintenance?
Yeah, yep.
And how far is that maintenance person from your home?
They live in the Kansas City area, so they're in Kansas City, Missouri, just across the river.
Thank you.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yeah, how often do you leave?
We haven't left yet, but we'll plan to leave in mid to late August.
How many times a year do you think you'll leave?
It's undefined right now exactly, but it looks like we'll be going and being gone for about 3 months at a time.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you.
Staff recommends approval, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Serta, seconded by Commissioner Huey. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of SP 2019-79, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard once again July 25th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Mr. Chairman, we now have 2 applications that we're going to hear together. We have Turner DAC, final plat for 1 commercial lot at 2211 South 55th Street, and plan review application PR 2019-16, David Contag with DLR Group, preliminary and final plan review for an athletic complex for Turner USD number 202 at 2211 South 55th Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, and the notices to property owners dated June 12, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening, Commissioners. David Contag, DLR Group, 7290 West 133rd Street, Overland Park, Kansas. We are representing USD 202. And from the Turner School District, we have Chris Crockett here with us this evening. Also with us, Mick Slutter with RIC, our civil engineer and surveyor who prepared the final plat. And we also have Mark Rowland, architect with DLR Group. So I would like to introduce the project as you're pulling up. We brought an aerial fly around, which I think will help you in addition to the plans and those present. The high school site, we worked on it over 20 years ago. And when the site was acquired, a couple additional lots, including these lots, which were always intended to build an athletic complex, the sports fields that the district didn't have the money to build at that time. There is a practice field on the, could we take it to the beginning and I can overview it. Maybe is at the beginning, I can stop it. Yeah, if we, so the, thanks Rob. There is a practice field that the band currently uses, but the athletic complex that you see before you, a lot of those activities are done at Swartz Field right now. And Swartz Field has become inadequate and not meeting current regulations, and in some cases a little bit dangerous. So we would like to help the district and provide a facility that'll be safe, also be sanctioned by the National High School Federation and the State of Kansas Activities Association. So that is our goal with this project. The entire site is about 58.6 acres. Of that site, we're disturbing what you see before you, about 14 acres for the new athletic complex, which will include a new track and football field, multi-use field actually. Soccer can be played on that as well. Grandstand for 1,500 on the home side, and you can see on the side facing 55th Street at the bottom of the page there. We'll seat 500. And also there'll be a synthetic turf soccer field on the opposite side. There are two buildings, actually three, a ticketing booth, and we'll look at these here going forward. A field house, which is right below that, which will have locker rooms and referee spaces and restrooms and concessions for visitor. And then on the home side, there's a building with restrooms, concessions, and press box up above. So we can go ahead and play the video. So 55th Street is there on the left, And as you are looking at the complex, you see the field house, the main entrance coming up off of the existing private drive for the high school. We're utilizing that drive. As you come through ticketing, you would come through a gate like that. The site slopes 85 feet from the east to the west, so we're accommodating that with a walk-down stadium. We do have a very small activity center sign and logo there on the side of the building. There's the football field and track, the 1,500 seats, press box, and then the soccer field you can see behind. Both fields will be lit, and we can talk about that here in a little bit. And we are proposing about 14 cars there on the end of the south end of the soccer field, mostly because there's no handicap parking over there. So to get patrons in that accommodate the handicap parking was critical. And then a look at the field house and some of the lighting there. Additionally, looking through the staff comments, there was a note number 2 on noise levels, and I wanted to point out that the band currently plays on the practice field at the high school, and the additional sound reinforcement that you find with the stadium, our sound engineer will direct all of the sound as much as possible with state-of-the-art equipment to the actual seating area, the grandstand itself, on the home side. As far as lighting, the light poles we've noted on the plan, we've also got approval from the FAA because the school is located within that area, and we've got preliminary approval there. The lighting for the football field will be 80 feet and 70 feet for the soccer field. The lighting will be the LED lights that have no spilling glare. And you're aware of with your street lights, when you change out from the metal halide that just has a big glow around it, these have none of that. They're individual little light pixels that aim directly to the field. Our light levels, when you get away from the field, about 120 feet away from the field, which would be the property line on 55th, and not even close to any of the other property lines, we drop to about 0.5, 0.4 foot candles, and then up to about 1.6 foot candles on the other side. We're keeping as many trees as possible where we are surrounded by residential neighborhoods to provide a buffer, as much of a buffer as we can. There's existing dense vegetation there. We're going to great lengths with some retaining walls to save a lot of those trees. Let's see. The other comment, I think we meet other staff comments. Oh, parking. The intent of the new complex with activities, that all the activities would be planned after the regular school day. We have existing, along with that proposed 14-car lot, just over 500, about 505 cars. With a 2,000-seat stadium, 1 car per 3 seats would equal 667 cars. So by doing that math, there's a potential that we could be 163 spaces short. However, the district has indicated that they don't have more than 500 people attend. 500 people is quite a bit less than 2,000, but we recognize that in going into the future, that with a new stadium and with everybody trying to do better, that there could be more fans attending games, and certainly with a district, if there was a regional event held here on the track, if there was a shortage of 160 some spaces, the district is willing, and we noted that in our comments, to provide a shuttle service from the elementary school just north of the site, or even the middle school, which has all combined over 300 probably cars in addition that could add to our total. We understand this is similar to an arrangement that you worked out with BPAC for USD 500, where they we're on a very small site and we're allowed to bring shuttle service in. So we'd be willing to work with staff to make that happen, ensure that happens. The site is, like, as I said, 14 acres, which is relatively small. We're also constrained with about 85 to 90 feet of grade change across the site. So we're trying to preserve the trees around the periphery and put the fields into the middle of the site, and saving as much of the peripheral trees that we can. That concludes the overview comments. Will stand for questions, and if you have questions for the school district or any of the others here tonight, that'd be great.
Are there questions for the petitioner? Yes, Commissioner Neal.
Full disclosure, I live on 53rd Street, and we're a little quiet, dead-end street with about 12 houses up there. So, yeah, my only question is, I appreciate how thoroughly you have explained lighting and noise, and, you know, we wake up in the year and we hear the band practicing, but, you know, it's a lot quieter than an alarm, and it's, you know, it's nice getting up to the practice. But just out of curiosity, how much of the woods up the hill, just an approximate, where is the stadium and everything going to end there, and the rest of it's?
Okay, so if do we have the site plan, or I could show?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact, just kind of, you know, with the cursor or something, if you could kind of show.
So you can see this open clearing today. Essentially, the football field and track is right on this piece.
Okay.
And then we have the grade change. We're running up through here. The soccer field is here. Basically down to the south end is about here. So these represent where that field house is, and we're trying to save what we can of the trees on this slope.
Okay.
And so back up here, we're really staying within the clearing and keeping all of this thick area of trees. And your house is where?
We're up on 53rd.
Okay.
They're down here almost at the end.
Oh, okay.
So this big area here is not even going to be touched.
Okay,
You're all
so
in
the
the
football field goes here. The soccer field essentially is right here.
Okay.
So we're saving about, I'm going to say about 150 feet of trees.
Okay.
And then we're trying to save, we're going to lose some trees here. We don't own this piece right now.
Okay.
And all those trees will remain. And then coming down through this area, we will be saving as much of this as we can right through here.
Okay.
I know that Mr. Randy Jones is here tonight, and his tenant lives in this property, and he did come to our neighborhood meeting that we held last month, and so we're trying to work and save as much as we can.
Yeah, I was out of town for the meeting and wasn't able to make it, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Other questions?
Right here.
Commissioner Connolly.
Yeah, so what would the parking lot be?
I think I've inherited a new mouse here. The parking lot would be, so what we're doing is, we're right in this location, we're putting a little turnaround, so when buses come in for athletic events, they can come in here, drop off, and then go park either on the south side of the school or up at the elementary school. And that parking lot is, the entrance of it is right here. We're removing a couple spaces because it worked better from a grading standpoint, and that parking lot basically curves up into this area and hugs alongside the main entry.
Yeah, I keep saying, I seen you point out to the saving some space here. I mean, you can't put more lots in here?
Well, there's about 40 or 50 feet of grade change through here, and we feel we have addressed the parking issue adequately because of being able to shuttle in and the fact that they don't park over 600 cars today at Swartz Field.
So you saying you don't need a variance for the parking?
Well, that would be
So,
up to staff.
Mr. Conley, the code for parking of this type of facility requires approval of the planning commission. So that number is set by you all. Our recommendation is to follow their site plan, much like we did for the KCK School District facility on 57th Street. So there's not a numeric requirement in the code for this type of facility. It's at your discretion as the planning commission.
Okay.
It's not a what now?
There's not a specified number or ratio in the code for this type of facility. It's the code lists the planning commission to set the number. That number is at your discretion as the planning commission.
Oh, okay.
But the formula being used comes from where?
General stadium
Guidelines?
guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the petitioner? Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there?
I wasn't finished, but. So, I mean, Rob, I'm sitting here and I'm reading something about how much parking, and it's based off of, it says it's required is 667. So where'd they get that required from?
So when we look at stadiums, and I would agree with Mr. Richardson, when we design stadiums across the country, we'll take and use one, and the building code does this as well, one space per 3 seats within the stadium, which would be 667 cars. However, I don't believe that there's a requirement, but we wanted to note that for the record, just to bring it up front. There's not a required amount. We believe the 505 spaces is adequate for most every event, and if that stadium completely packed out because there is a regional tournament, we know that a lot of those, or a tournament, a track meet or something, we know a lot of the athletes are coming by bus, and we know that a lot of the fans could be coming. There may need to be a shuttle service, and we just wanted to point that out. We knew that it would come up, and we think that the district can work that out with shuttles.
I'm just saying, because it sounds like Rob is saying something different. There's no requirement. I see requiring 600.
Yeah.
But Rob said there's no requirement, so it doesn't matter?
That's correct.
That's correct, yep.
Okay.
David, would it be fair to say that Swartz Field does not have 500 parking spaces on the asphalt or the baseball field or the hill?
I'm sorry, which field?
The current field doesn't have.
Yeah, the current field.
Near the parking.
There's nowhere near that.
People are at Swartz are parking on the grass, on the lawns, and making their way up, and a few on the streets. So, and I think there's about 500 to 600 patrons that come, and usually you'll see 2 or 3 people come in one car. So that might be 400 cars tops.
And there's not a handicap requirement either?
Yeah, we're meeting handicap, in fact, exceeding it for the entire site.
So there's requirement for handicap parking, but not for.
Correct.
Any further questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone who wants to speak in favor of this petition or in opposition to? Sir? Okay. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Randy Jones. I live at 11250 South Kill Creek Road in Olathe. I bought the property at 5433 Douglas Avenue in 2003 as my primary residence. It's the property at just north of the field there. In 2008, we entered into a lease to buy arrangement on that property as we wanted to move to a larger home as we grew our family. I have several concerns about this initiative. The first is how it was communicated. I received no communications at all about this project. I talked to my renter, and they said they also did not receive communications and had several complaints about people in the community not receiving notifications. When I approached, the reason I found out about this was my renter actually contacted me in May and said, hey, we are not going to buy this property anymore because of this project. We heard about it after it got approved in the ballot. We're not going to buy this property, and so they backed out of our lease to buy agreement because of this effort. So this has caused me some financial impact. When I approached the school board about this, they said notices were sent, but they said they weren't sent to the property owners. They were sent to the actual properties, and they said that's because of the list they got from the county. They also informed me that I was not allowed to vote. This was after it already happened, because I was no longer a resident, even though I owned the property probably most impacted by this project. So my initial concern was absolutely no notification, and as you can see from the drawing, I am the closest to the football field. My second concern is, of course, related to the financial impact to my property. I've already lost my buyer, and then there's also the potential impact to my property value that this will have. We, of course, at the property can also hear the marching band currently, and it's going to get much closer, and I think it'll be much louder than an alarm clock at this property just north. So I'm very concerned about the noise. I'm very concerned about the lights. The speakers are going to be on the north end of the property on the scoreboard. I don't know if you remember that from the aerial view, so it'll be closest to my property. The lights, of course, are very tall and very close. And then I'm also very concerned about the drainage. Currently, there is a lot of vegetation on this property. The plan basically has the water, it takes a lot of the vegetation out, and the water is going to go two different directions. There's going to go to a north basin and a south basin. So half of the water from that property is going to be dumping to the north. Is the mouse still up here? I'll use this if it works. The water, there's a basin that's going to be right about here, and then that's actually going to dump right here into the creek that runs across the front yard here of my property. And so this creek, when it rains hard currently, gets within 5 or 6 feet of the house. If we get any more water at all into that creek, it's going to flood my house. I have been reassured that's not going to happen, but I can't fathom how dumping half the water that direction is not going to increase that water flow at all. And so, and my fourth concern that I just learned today was about the parking. I didn't know there was under parking here, and anytime there's an event, you know, the fireworks or whatever goes on, people start parking right here in this land, which of course is my land. And so I'm very concerned about the impact this has already had on my property from a financial perspective, the impact it's having, and will continue to have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
Sir, what was your name again, and what's the address of that property?
My name is Randall Jones, and that's 5433 Douglas Avenue. I think it's 918800, if the parcel helps you. The current residents are James and Jennifer Gonauer.
And the property is listed under your name?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. We'll get you some answers here. Can we go ahead and have the petition? Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor of or in opposition? Okay, can we go ahead?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm going
Commissioner
to
Neal?
choose to recuse myself at this point.
Okay,
The vote.
all right. Janet, did you get that? Commissioner Neal's going to recuse. Can you go ahead and step back up to the microphone and see if we can address some of the concerns with, specifically regarding the flooding concerns and the basin?
Yes, I'd like Mick Slutter to address that.
Okay. Go ahead and give us your name and address, please, for the record.
Hi, I'm Nick Slutter with Renaissance Infrastructure Consulting. We're at 132 Abbey Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas. As to the storm drainage on this site, we do have two watersheds, one that drains to the north and one to the south, with the crest of the hill being about the midpoint of where the football and the soccer fields are. We are going to try to maintain those existing watersheds, so the water that's draining to the north will be relatively the same as it is today. We are going to be collecting so what's going to be draining to the north will be the football field, what's collected off the football field and the track. Through underground, it's a turf field, so it has underground piping that water will collect into there in the field and from the track. It'll be directed to a detention basin where then it will be released through a storm pipe down and daylight into the existing drainage way to the north. The intent of the basin is to not release any more peak runoff as there is today.
And that will alleviate the neighbor's concern to that property that now gets water within 5 to 6 feet of the property.
Correct. We've designed the basin per the strict unified government standards for storm drainage. In addition to also, we're providing water quality treatment per the UG standards. So the water will be cleaner than it is today. But yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions for this gentleman? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, do you want to speak?
Can I answer? Yes. Chris Crockett, Turner School District, Director of Facilities and Grounds, 800 South 55th Street, Kansas City, Kansas. So in reference to the amount of literature that we put out about this bond initiative and the projects we were going to try and achieve with it, it's been in Turner Today for the last year and a half, advertising the District Activity Center, and it's also on our website. We sent notices out to everyone that we were notified to ask to come to the neighborhood meeting. In regards to the bond vote, that's not in our control at all. I would like to point out that the district purchased that property 20 years ago when they purchased the property for the high school. And it's always been the intent to eventually have an activity center there, so.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I can address the lighting issue as well.
And the sound, please.
Pardon?
And the sound.
And the sound, correct. With the lighting, again, anytime you light a surface, that surface glows. But the type of lights that we have, Mr. Jones is located at a lower elevation, but there are quite a few trees and pretty dense trees that are going to be located there. The light 120 feet away from the track edge will drop to, and I brought the Wyandotte County Unified Government doesn't have light level requirements, but we are dropping to accepted standards by most communities, which is a half-foot candle at the property line, and we'll be easily at a 0-foot candle at his property line, as well as the rest of the residential. Not even only because of the trees, which are going to help that, but because we're only at about 0.5 to about 1.4-foot candles, 120 feet from the track. So again, no spill and glare as you see with old stadiums that have metal halide lighting. You can almost see it on a night where there's a lot of humidity, like maybe tonight, and there'd be a big halo or a glow. LEDs cut through that, and they are directed to the field. As far as lighting, sound. When our sound consultant does the final design for the lighting, we will already have it in his scope of work to make sure that the sound is directed to the seating areas only. With the exception of, if there's any kind of emergency, that could, if there's lightning or something like that, we do have some sound inside the buildings if there were people in the buildings themselves in concessions, they would be notified if the facility was going to be vacated in an emergency for whatever reason, or lightning. So the sound will be designed to the latest standards as well, keeping it limited to the seating areas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, can I make one comment to clarify something I
Go ahead, please come to the microphone.
I forgot to mention this. So my property is actually kind of unique. It actually faces away from the road and faces south and faces actually towards the stadium. So the stadium is.
Right, I think
literally
you
in the
mentioned that
front
when you
yard.
talked about the water coming up to the front of the house.
Okay, sorry. Didn't know if I was clear about
All
that.
right, thank you. Anyone else in the public want to speak? I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting. I'm going to get staff comments, and can you address the notice issue, Rob?
Yes, we have an error in notice. We need to hold this over till it can be properly noticed.
Okay.
I think that on the plat, this is just a plat and a plan review, which we can do that, and it can be on next month and meet the notice, but it has not been properly noticed. I'm going to ask the applicant to do another neighborhood meeting as well. I'm very sorry, but these multiple parcels, one of the parcels must not have been selected in the GIS system when it was put into the system, because there's no one noticed on Douglas Avenue, and obviously there should be at least two, if not more, noticed on Douglas Avenue. So I apologize to the applicant, but this, we don't meet the statutory and the code requirements for notice at this point.
Okay. Questions for staff at this point for holdover? Commissioner Reason.
So Rob, are you saying that nothing was ever sent out to that house?
That house did not receive notice for the neighborhood meeting or for the official notices from us.
Okay. Now, also on properties that are considered rental properties, is there a database showing that that's a rental house?
No, it goes to the owner. We just send it to the owner. You can see right here, we have Mr. Jones' name and address, and it would go to him. And if I click in further, it would show more personal information. It would give his actual address, and it would go to the owner's address.
Okay,
And I don't know if this is what he's listed as with an address, if his tax bill comes here, if it comes to his other property somewhere else or to a P.O. box, but we would send it to the owner address that they have on file with the county.
Okay, so it has been registered as a rental property?
I don't know.
It wasn't
I don't
considered
know.
a rental property. It was sold on a lease purchase agreement.
Yeah, so that,
Okay,
That negates the
okay.
rental.
correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Serta?
Just to clarify, that's not the issue, though. Right.
I'm sorry?
That's not the cause for the notice issue.
No, it is not.
Just to be clear.
No, it's an administrative error on our part.
Questions for staff regarding holdover recommendation? Seeing none, we'll stand for that motion.
What date is that in August, Janet? So it'll be August 12th.
August 12th.
Do you have a question, sir?
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Because delaying the construction of the project is going to increase the amount of construction, and we were already on a tight timeline, is there any way to expedite that?
That's not to deal with here. You'll need to talk to me tomorrow.
Okay.
I can't answer that off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
Okay, stand for a motion.
Motion to hold over to the August, what was the date again?
12th.
12th meeting.
Motion to hold over made by Serta, seconded by Commissioner Reasons. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal? Oh, I'm sorry. Reasons?
Aye.
Serta?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to hold over the plat passes 5 in favor and none opposed.
All right, thank you.
Do we need a similar motion to the same effect for
And
the
I need a motion on the plan review too, please.
same motion to hold over PR 2019-16?
Second.
Motion to hold over made by Serta, seconded by Connolly. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to hold over until the August 12th meeting passes 5 in favor and none opposed.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Connolly, would you get Commissioner Neal? Thank you.
Our next application is Plan Review PR 2019-11. Dave Olson with SC Investors KCK LLC. Preliminary and final plan review for a primary care medical office facility at 9801 Parallel Parkway. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case. the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, and the notices to property owners dated April 15, 2019, May 16, 2019, and June 4, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening. Are you the petitioner?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, why don't you give us your name and address and tell us about your project?
Good evening. Dave Olson, member, SC Investors, KCK, LLC, 7200 132nd, Overland Park. And good evening. I am proud to bring the first standalone SpiraCare facility to Wyandotte County and actually in Kansas. Spira is Blue Cross Blue Shield's point of service for primary care. So they're serving the Wyandotte County area through this facility. As far as the business points, we've worked with staff to develop a building elevation that complies with the commercial design standards. We've worked with staff to develop an acceptable site layout plan to both staff and the user. So with that, we're in a position to accept staff's stipulations. We have properly noticed the neighborhood. We held our neighborhood meeting. Nobody was actually in attendance other than ourselves, so there were no negative comments or feedback that we needed to address. And with that, I'm simply asking for your approval of our application. We are ready to start construction immediately with your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to this petition? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd recommend approval of both the preliminary and final plans, subject to staff stipulations. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve by Serta, seconded by Commissioner Huey. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of PR 2019-11, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. Those will be heard again July 25th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Our next application is Plan Review Application PR 2019-17, Rodrigo Rivera. Preliminary and final plan review for interior remodel and parking improvements at 1010, 1014, and 1020 Armstrong Avenue. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, and the notices to property owners dated June 12, 2019. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening, Mr. Skidmore.
Thank you, Chairman Carson, members of the commission. Jeff Skidmore with Schlegel and Associates, 14920 West 107th Street, Lenexa, Kansas, here on behalf of the Casa de Deos Church facility this evening. I'll be brief, not a lot to add beyond what's in the planning staff's report. This is a remodel of an existing building. The existing building is currently vacant. It was previously used just as a storage, kind of an overflow type facility. They're going to upgrade it. It's renovation, both of the exterior and interior improvements to convert it to some office space to help serve the church. The building could stand alone as it will be built. It will also involve the upgrade of the parking lots around it, landscaping improvements, sidewalk improvements, and just an overall upgrade and kind of a readdressing of this really half a block there along Armstrong at the intersection of 10th and Armstrong. And with that, we have read through the stipulations. We're in agreement with the stipulations. Be glad to stand for any questions.
Any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we'll open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak in favor of or in opposition to the request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would recommend approval, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
I make a motion. I make a motion to approve PR 2019-17 based with staff recommendations.
I second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Connolly, seconded by Commissioner Ernst. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Conley?
Aye.
Ernst?
Aye.
Yui?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of PR 2019-17, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. Be heard once again July 25th. Thank you. Good to see you.
Our next application is Plan Review PR 2019-18. Brian Hill with MKEC Engineering, Inc. Preliminary and final plan review for construction of a maintenance storage facility at 2600 North 44th Street. Please include the following items as part of the record for this case: the city's currently adopted zoning and subdivision regulations, the official zoning map for the area in question, the city's currently adopted master plan for the area in question, the staff report and attachments dated July 8, 2019, the application and other documents, plans, pictures, and maps submitted by the applicant in furtherance of the case and contained in the official file, and the notices to property owners dated June 12, 2019. This time, does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this case?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Apparently, I didn't answer correctly a while ago when you asked if I had anything else to talk about.
I almost said you again.
Yeah. All right. I am not Brian Hill. I'm Doug Clements, Director of Physical Properties with the Kansas City, Kansas Public School District, 2010 North 59th. We do have Greg Nelson here with MKEC, and he can get up and speak if he would like, and James Everett with HDK Architects. This facility, which you're not seeing up there, but if you recall, well, you may not, this facility, we're requesting to build a new maintenance storage facility to replace a facility that we had at 118th and Parallel. That's out in front of the old Northwest Middle School, which is planned to be demoed here soon, and we're in the process of building Carl B. Bruce Middle School right now. When we got the new West Park Elementary School approved, that's going to replace West Middle School, which is in the process of being torn down if you haven't driven by there lately. We're going to build West Park Middle School. On that plan, we showed a projected site for a future building, and through the course of our discussions, we've gone ahead and done some planning, which you're going to talk about tonight, to replace that facility that was on 118th Street. if that makes sense. It's kind of a convoluted introduction to what we're doing here tonight. We're replacing our maintenance hut, is what we called that. It was about if I remember right, 12 to 13,000 square foot total. There were about 4 buildings down there. So this altogether is going to be just about 10,000 square feet. I'll let James and Greg go through the details of it and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you.
James Everard, HDK Architects, 9300 West 110th Street, Overland Park, Kansas. I believe I posted some images and a slideshow that we have of the meeting that we presented. And there, the other one. Yes, sir. This is a presentation that we did similar for our neighborhood planning commission meeting, or our neighborhood meeting for this planning commission meeting. And just a broad overview of the project. And next slide, please. And next slide. So once again, giving context to what Doug was discussing for the project, we have the existing West Middle School that is currently being demolished, and West Park Elementary School will be constructed in its place. To the north off Georgia Avenue in that dotted line is the project site for the planned maintenance facility. One item to note that there is a huge amount of grade change from the south end of this site off Haskell all the way to Georgia. And just like West Park Elementary, we are taking the natural kind of flow of the site and building the West Park into the site, but also taking advantage of the grade change to locate the maintenance facility. Next slide. And just to give some context of what the original site was before the construction of West Park, that some of the bigger concerns, which this site had 5 different points of access from the property line into the site. That probably the main to note is there was a major thoroughfare through school property going along the southwest side. And with our new construction of our new facility, next slide, we take those 5 points of access and bring them down to 3 controllable ones, keeping the same access off North 43rd Street in Haskell. That existing construction stays the same, and the existing parking loop where William Allen White is and West Park will staying the same. Off Georgia Avenue, where this facility will be accessed off the bus route drive. That will be reinforced. You can see the plan off Georgia Avenue, the black square with the 3 red squares. So next slide. The landscape plan. So what this facility is, in a broad overview, is a series of metal buildings situated around a courtyard, a concrete courtyard. All the buildings face inward. You can go to next slide, Rob. And next slide. So all the buildings face inward. It's a series of metal buildings with garage doors that have basically access for a facility to store vehicles. No maintenance is performed there. It is basically a storage facility for those vehicles where USD staff can come access the building through secure gates and basically be able to park, grab a vehicle, grab a spreader, grab a sander, and leave. There is no work done at this facility. It is basically a holding facility for the vehicles. There will be some deliveries that we'll have for assault storage. That's the small building form on the bottom of the plan there. That's going to be a cast-in-place concrete structure with a roof. Biggest thing is just it's a holding area. It will be secure, and we can go to some images that kind of better explain it. The building will be composed of insulated metal panels, of very hardy, energy-efficient material, but also a very pleasing aesthetic material. We're not trying to put some kind of very utilitarian salt shed buildings on the site. It's really just looking to accent the architecture of West Park Elementary that has cast-in-place concrete, architectural metal panels. There will be, and you can go to the next slide, please. So various screening elements. that take the brick of West Park and incorporate into masonry corners. We'll have solid cedar fencing. And probably the most important thing is we're going to have landscape that will be located around the building to soften the edges and provide more of a kind of a landscape complex that hides this facility, but also provides a safe and more pleasing elevation to look at as opposed to just a freestanding metal building. And next image. And you can see here the bus loop for West Park is that dark gray corner to the left of the image, and that is about 10 to 12 feet up in height. And tucking this building in using existing cut and fill with the construction that you'll be able to see the tops of these buildings, but we're really just kind of simple slope. The materials match the adjacent school. Everything will be screened, but everything's internalized to where there's no access from students, from the public. It's all a very secure and maintained facility to house the vehicles for the school district. You can also see the landscaping around the east and north sides.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your question.
We will go ahead and open up the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. We'll get staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd recommend approval, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Are there questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Commissioner Huey, seconded by Commissioner Neal. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Ernst?
Aye.
Huey?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of PR 2019-18, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you. This will be heard again July 25th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next application is consideration of conformance to master plan for Foodie Park project plan for project area A located south of State Avenue between 47th Street and I-635. Does any member of the commission have any contact to disclose with regard to this application?
No.
All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Good evening.
Good evening. Catherine Carter. I'm Director of Economic Development here at the Unified Government. This is a public-private partnership project, which is why I'm up here. Kurt Peterson, who's with representing Scavuzzo's, is here as well if you have any questions. But this conformance with the master plan is the first step required in the TIF process, which is why we're here. We were just upstairs at another meeting going through some other steps in that process with the Economic Development and Finance Committee. So you may remember this project. They came through and did their preliminary and final plat about 6 months ago. And at that time, they presented a master plan amendment, which was approved. So this, now this area is considered a business park, and as such, this plan is in conformance.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing, go ahead, Commissioner Connolly.
So what are we voting on tonight? Should we get TIF for this project?
No, this is just saying that the plan proposed is in conformance with the master plan.
Any further questions? We'll go ahead and, we need to open up public comment.
Might as well.
Okay, we'll open up public comments. Seeing none, we'll close the public comments and we'll get staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a technical part of the TIF statute that they don't want to provide the opportunity for TIF projects that don't conform to the master plan of the community. The master plan for this area is business park for this phase 1. The rest of it is community commercial. So when those future phases come forward, they will comply as well. But when the zoning was done, it was changed a bit. The master plan had to be changed at that time. So we did a master plan amendment to business park, and this plan that's proposed fulfills what we thought was going to happen at that time and does comply, conform to the master plan. I would ask if there's a motion that it be read from the staff report because it is a technical, legal approval for this, and the wording needs to be as stated in the staff report. We'd recommend approval.
Are there questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I will stand for a specific motion.
I move the City Planning Commission find the Midtown Redevelopment District Project Plan for Project Area 1 conforms to the citywide master plan.
I second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Neal, seconded by Commissioner Ernst. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Conley? Ernst?
Aye.
Yui?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Reasons?
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our last item on the agenda tonight is the presentation of the capital maintenance and improvements.
Excuse me, Janet, don't we need to call one more time
Yeah, let's
SB
go back and finish up that one application.
2019-71? Do it at the real end? Okay. I'm sorry, Janet, please continue on.
Sorry, we're in the wrong.
Members of the Planning Commission, what did that, there we go. I just want to take an opportunity to introduce Dave Young. I don't think you've had the opportunity to meet Dave before. He is the new Assistant Director of Public Works for the city, and he's going to do the presentation for you all on the CMIP. The Board of Commissioners needs a recommendation from you all before they adopt the budget. And as you know, the budget's a fluid process, and so we wait kind of till the very end of this to our last opportunity to present this to you so you have the most up-to-date information. But it's been a pleasure working with Dave in his brief time here, and I think you'll enjoy his presentation tonight. And I think he's also going to talk to you a little bit about the future and how the CMIP process might change that will be a benefit to all of us. Dave?
Thank you, Rob. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to present. I have obviously drawn a crowd. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I get to control this or not. We'll see right quick. Yeah.
Nope.
The down arrow. On the key.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
To the left.
Thank you.
There you go.
So this commission report was originally created on May 9th and submitted to the full commission and is under review as part of the budget process. This isn't even the right version. That's okay. We can skip through this. So this is the portion of the project that is Public Works. The Leavenworth Road project started a year ago. Many of you know that project. It's a $13.3 million federally funded project to completely reconstruct the Leavenworth Road project, Leavenworth Road. The next phase of the project actually will start in the fall of this year for utility relocates. And we hope to have that phase, which is from 63rd to 78th Street, open for use in 2021. So utilities this year, you'll see construction in that area, earth moving, lane constriction, things like that in the fall of 2020. The next major project we'd like to talk about is wastewater projects. The Walcott Treatment Plant Expansion Project, a mere $45.5 million, will begin this summer, actually, and we expect it to come online in late 2021. The Caw Biosolids Project, currently we're in negotiations with Casey Moe on a regional biosolids plan. So this would allow one treatment plant upgrade to serve the entire region for biosolids. This project is estimated at $70 million and would come online in 2023. So we're looking out here a little ways. Not the plus button. The I-70 Turner Diagonal, again, $14 million of federal money, $7.5 million state and local, and a $1.5 million developer match will rebuild the interstate interchange here at I-70 and Turner Diagonal, creating, I believe it's a $100 million development opportunity in this area.
It opens up about $3 350 to 400 acres for development there.
So it's a significant impact. This project will be underway yet this year. It is a partnership with KTA, the state, and the city, jointly managing that project. Some of these projects you may not have heard about, some new air chillers over at Memorial Hall and new cooling towers at the Department of Justice, both of these to be completed this year. A new fire station at Hutton and Leavenworth Road, again, under construction right now, land development portion working. The Juvenile Justice Center, just up the street from us, $28 million, expected to open late next year. The tow lot facility is something we've been looking at. We're looking at a centralized location within Wyandotte County, and we're trying to partner the tow lot project with a new water pollution control maintenance facility. The site has yet to be finalized. They're in preliminary engineering on a couple of locations. A couple of things we'd like to talk about in our CMIP projects. We have capital projects generally being funded either for facilities and stormwater. You've seen those. Other than that, Public Works generally funds maintenance projects with our roads. We don't do a lot of standalone complete road rehabilitation projects. Most of the work Public Works does right now in this budget is the maintenance portion. We have legal mandates from the ADA and EPA. Those are funded in this as well. And we work together to leverage these funds, seeking specifically grants or special assessments to maximize their impact. A couple of new things in the CMIP. So the annual preservation program is not new, but what it is a combination of several line items in the budget. In order to streamline things and put them into one pot, we combined several line items and created one item for pavement preservation. The concrete repair program is new. That is curb and gutter to be constructed a year in advance of going in and doing a mill and overlay project. So think repairs, so we don't have traditional mill and overlay leaving the curb. So we're actually going to try to do those curb repairs a year in advance. An alley improvement program, this is new. It's about $300,000 a year to do alley maintenance. Our annual traffic safety and operations program is a combination of several programs together, further streamlining the budgeting process for your review. The asset management system renewal is a $4 million new program that would start in 2022. Basically doing line replacements based on the findings of the asset management study that's ongoing in wastewater right now. Our new CMIP projects this year, of course, the $450 million Kansas City levee betterment project does kick off, and it has a 5-year time frame. We will be doing significant amounts of construction along the Kansas River on our side. Our portion of that project is $10.2 million to be paid out over the next 3 years. 6th Street improvements, we'll go into that here in just a second. 7th Street, we'll also talk about that a little bit. Both of these are scheduled for 2020 and 2021. The intersection improvements at 110th and Riverview Avenue are put to 2022. And then Armourdale sewer separations, starting in 2023, we have a phase 1 and phase 2 of those projects. We will provide you maps for those projects. They were in the other presentation. So specifically, part of our Better Block program, we worked with planning to look at what 6th Street would possibly look like in the future. As part of a 2018 program, fall 2018 program, we came up through public comment, this program and striping plan for 6th Street, which includes bikeways and improved angle parking. During the spring of 2020, prior to implementing this program, we would expect additional public outreach. The 7th Street reconstruction, this is $3 million total project, which would redesign this entire configuration of this intersection. Again, we're looking at 2021. There are various designs under discussion. And then that is actually the end of the Public Works CMIP presentation. What we would like to talk about is this particular challenge faced by Public Works. Today, you will see our current program, about $4.5 million annually for budgeted for mill and overlay and maintenance total. The dash line you see at the top, currently, based on a survey, microwave survey, where we did penetration testing on all streets in the city, we average a 56, city and county-wide. on a scale of 100. So that's the condition of our road. If we do nothing in the program, other than make a few tweaks that we're proposing this year, funding-wise, by 2038, we would expect our roads to be a 38. We have 2,400 lane miles of roads. Of that, roughly 275 miles need complete reconstruction. And you'll see a picture of what that looks like a little later. If we converted all of our money from maintenance to mill and overlay only, you would see a slight improvement to about a 47%. Again, downward trending. Looking at a possible way we could approach this problem is to increase our funding by about 25% annually. That would be every year for the next 20 years. And you would see that in maintenance operations, we could keep everything steady. If we converted most of that money over to mill and overlay, we would actually see an increase up to about 78% in our score for all the roads in the county. The challenge is to increase 25% year over year is very expensive. We'd like to talk long-term about how we can incorporate some data-driven decisions, what you see in our asset management program, and allowing us to specifically use some different pavement technology. Many of you may have seen chip seal. I don't know if you're familiar with that technology. Basically, we feel that there are a lot of roads where traffic count is not high enough to warrant a full mill and overlay. And we can get a significant lifespan increase out of those roads for about a third of the cost of mill and overlay. So converting our program a little bit and creating a CIP that's based on a few factors that we would really like your input on. So a couple of the factors we're thinking about: traffic count, population density, property values, tax rates, increases or decreases in property value, safety, the number of accidents on a given road, the PCI, specifically the pavement index, and building a matrix for how we spend our $4.5 million. We would like to come back and engage the Planning Commission on what exactly goes into that metric, so we can look out a little further. Were we to do that and build a full 5-year CIP plan that identifies all projects to be done in that time frame, we would be able to do street maintenance activities with our in-house crews a year in advance of each one of those either mill and overlay or chip seal programs. We think this will decrease our mobilization costs for our contractors and actually increase the amount of pavement we can get done in any given year. But we would need your support on that. We want to make sure this is a community effort where we're looking at the attributes that go into our CIP and voting on those at the commission level. Thoughts?
Thoughts on,
I hate chip seal, but it makes sense based on the criteria you used.
Thank you.
Traffic, property values. It's probably the only way to ever get it done.
Thank you, Jim. That's some of the feedback we're looking for, specifically in, we're a city and county, right? So in a lot of our county neighborhoods, the arterial streets in those, we don't see traffic counts over 1,000 a day. So we should look at those roads as potentially the locations we would do chip seal. We'd get the pavement surface sealed from water damage, and we get a lot more life expectancy out of it. Also in neighborhoods with low volumes. We have a lot of rural streets that may serve 5 houses or 10 houses. Those would be prime candidates for chip seal. Other thoughts?
For us new guys, can you just give a brief definition of what chip seal is compared to mill overlay?
Sure. So mill and overlay, generally speaking, is where a large piece of equipment goes in and grinds off about 2 inches of existing asphalt pavement. And then 2 inches is laid back down of new asphalt in its place. Where this works is where your pavement condition index is roughly 70 or higher. So you don't have a lot of subgrade failure. You notice that the largest percentage of our streets, our average is 56. So we're going in and mill and overlaying, and we're spending a lot of money paying contractors to do patching work in advance of that, where they go in and saw cut out an area. Many of you have seen that type of approach. What we would like to do is on those streets, plan out far enough in advance so our in-house crew can go out and do the patching work, and then we would come through and mill off that area. The difference with chip seal is you don't mill anything. You go through and you spray an asphalt emulsion on top of the pavement, and then you put small, usually anywhere from a 1/2 inch to down to 1/8 inch aggregate gravel on top, and you roll it into that emulsion. We would generally do what's known as the double chip seal, which is to apply the emulsion, put the chips down, apply a second coat of emulsion and a second coat of chips. We think this will seal the roadbed, and where we don't have a lot of traffic count, this will be a very cost-effective approach to maintaining those roads.
How does the property value piece figure into that?
That's a question for this commission. So what we did was brainstorm in Public Works and the engineering group, what kind of metrics would go into a formula, right? Where should we spend our money? Property values could play into that. They may not. That's for this commission really to discuss. We want to provide service to the entire county. Where should we spend the limited resources that we have?
Because I'm thinking about some specific roads that do not have a large number of properties that front that, but there are arteries into very expensive neighborhoods and things like that. So I'm imagining a chip and seal road that is leading into a $1 million subdivision.
Correct. So I think those are some of the things we're looking at. So what would be the buffer, if you will, on the calculation? So you could do a 1 mile buffer. So 1 mile on each side of a road segment. So if you consider a 1 mile road segment to be the area of study, we could look at 1 mile all the way around that. And we could take that and create an aggregated property value number. We could. I'm not endorsing this.
Sure.
What I would like to do is discuss that with this commission as we go forward in the process. I don't, to my knowledge, that has not ever been done in this community as far as how do we spend our dollars. Generally, the engineering department looks at safety, pavement index rating, there you go. It's a very straight engineering approach to the problem. I think with our challenge here, we need to look at, does infrastructure drive property value? So if we have high-quality infrastructure in a given neighborhood, does that drive property values up? Does low levels of infrastructure depress property values? I think innately at a planning commission level, we can have that conversation and talk about where should we spend our dollars. This would involve a significant change in the 2021 budgeting process. So we would come to you earlier, much earlier in the process, and deliver a proposed CIP metric. You would give us feedback on that metric, and we would rank the projects out for 5 years.
Okay.
Whereas now, it's generally a year at a time.
Any other comments?
Well, I know if any of you have never driven on a chip seal road, it's not fun. I will tell you that. I lived out in Colorado for a couple of years, and that's how they did almost every road in a rural county, just because it helped to save the budget. But that is a big concern for me as we're trying to upgrade the infrastructure in our city. And all of a sudden, if we start putting chip seal roads down, I'm wondering if it's setting us back. I mean, yes, it is a cheaper process, and it's sometimes better than throwing up some asphalt in the hole in the wall that's going to pop up again next year. But at the same time, what's it going to do on the long road? I mean, I could see that if you're going out further into western Wyandotte, you could see it more and more out there. But the actual city itself, I'm wondering what kind of pushback we get on that, because it's just, I don't know, I never enjoyed driving on it, and it, yeah, but I understand it is a little cheaper.
Sure.
It doesn't feel like a major city. It feels like a country road. So
I will note that Overland Park uses it on some fairly major thoroughfares that connect, like between Knoll and Metcalf and other places where there's some very expensive houses where they've done that. And, it's louder when it's newer, and once it gets worn in, it's not as loud. And, we have to, talk to the community to see if that's a trade-off they're willing to make. I mean, because, your points are valid. I mean, there is a difference, and I think to the folks living on it, the difference is probably primarily that there's going to be more noise from tires as people drive down the street.
I think the double technique helps. We've got a fair amount in Turner, and Johnson County uses it extensively. County line, I'm pretty sure, is chip seal. They did it on the Johnson County side, so we said, okay, we'll do it on the Wyandotte County side. And it works.
Commissioner Reason's point is well taken. It is a different type of surface. The challenge is when you're faced with declining revenues and increasing cost for maintenance, the cost for a chip seal is 1/3. So what is the trade-off? If we could do 2/3 as much road for the same price, is it okay? And especially if we're looking at low-volume areas. I think it's a trade-off. And you are correct, Commissioner Ernest. Johnson County uses it extensively. They are the ones pioneering the double chip seal methodology. And they use what's called a 4 or a 5 sweep pass, where they run road sweepers across it at a very specific interval to take up any loose aggregate that's left over after the process and clean it up. We are definitely trying to be creative here in how we use the dollars to benefit the maximum area of our community.
What's the comparison of lifespan between chip seal, 2 layers, and the mill overlay?
So generally, chip seal at 2 layers is considered a 10-year to 12-year product, and asphalt overlay is a 15-year product.
Okay.
On the, how does it hold up? Because I know like in the counties where I used to live in, of course, we didn't have plow trucks, and that's why it worked so great in those areas. In an area where, the one thing that's amazing about Wyandotte County is how quickly they get out and clean the roads. It's one of the best, I think. How is that going to affect as they continue to run over those with those? Are we going to be looking at more like a 5-year turnaround because it'll tear up the chip seal, or what?
No, the methodology behind the chip seal is to eliminate water getting into the subgrade. So the plow truck won't have any impact on that. But that's the challenge. How do you effectively seal the roadbed? Traditionally, you would do what's called crack sealing. You would go in with a machine, route out all the cracks, and spray hot tar into those cracks. Generally about 30 to 50 cents a linear foot on an asphalt road. It's generally something most cities do with in-house crews, right? Because it's expensive. So you can get that cost down significantly with in-house crews. The challenge for us is we have 2,400 lane miles. How can we do it more cost effectively on a broader scale? Seal the road up, stop the degradation of the base from water getting under the road, and we get a significant improvement in lifespan.
Other comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Unless there are public comments.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. No, very, very, very well done. Thank you so much, and welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So with that, we'd ask that you recommend approval of the CMIP as presented to the Board of Commissioners.
Questions? Questions for staff? Seeing none, I will.
I
now stand.
actually have one
Okay.
question.
Commissioner Reason?
If I'm going too far, there's something that talks about the underfunded transportation projects. Is that part of this whole thing, or?
So the presentation, Commissioner, the presentation you're seeing is a combination of finance
Okay.
presentation, transportation presentation, and it was all lumped together into one presentation.
Okay, never mind. Thank you.
Rob, okay, stand for a motion, please.
Motion to approve the CMIP as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Serta for approval, seconded by Commissioner Reasons. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Aye.
Yui,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Reasons,
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval of the CMIP passes 6 in favor and none opposed.
Thank you.
Now we'll go back to the one that we moved to the end of the agenda, special use permit application, SP 2019-71, Deborah Jones with Jones Barbecue, special use permit for live entertainment in conjunction with existing restaurant at 6706 Caw Drive. All those for and against, please come to the front of the room.
Mr. Chairman, obviously, the applicant isn't here.
Yes.
This is a lunchtime activity that they're proposing. I don't think it's controversial in any way. No one came to the neighborhood meeting. I would recommend that we open the public hearing and move forward with this case this evening.
Okay, first of all, we'll go ahead and open up the public portion of the meeting, and there is no one in attendance to speak, but we'll make that request anyway. Seeing none, we will close it. We will get staff recommendations.
Recommend approval of this case, subject to the staff comments in the report.
Questions for staff on this case?
I only have one suggestion. The portion where you asked about using a card reader, the answer was, yes, we check ID. And I'm not sure the ladies necessarily understood. I think it would behoove us to give them some more details on it.
She and I will, or she and one of the members of my staff will have a meeting on another issue coming up shortly. On another matter unrelated to this site, and we will take care of that at that point in time.
Further questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll stand for a motion.
Recommend approval, subject to all comments and suggestions outlined in this staff report.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Neal, seconded by Commissioner Serta. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Conley,
Nay.
Ernst,
Aye.
Huey,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Reasons,
Aye.
Serta.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion to recommend approval, subject to the staff's comments and suggestions, passes 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
Thank you. It will be heard again on July 25th in this room.
Thank you all.
That concludes our agenda. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.